This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. Yesterday, I watched a video where Mike Benz suggested that Mr. Beast might be a product of CIA statecraft, a carefully engineered influencer designed to shape hearts and minds of Gen Z in time for the next election cycle. He laid out the connections between the Rockefeller Foundation, the CIA, USAID, and even NATO's Atlantic Council. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Now listen, I gotta tell you, I know a lot of people are like Mr. Beast stans, but I always knew something was up with this guy. I always knew it. The Rockefeller Foundation partners with Mr. Beast to target youth with next-gen propaganda. This is from Zero Hedge, the world's most internationally recognized content creator, Jimmy, Mr. Beast. And we saw that the Rockefeller Foundation was already, in 1950, was already, when it was reaching out to foundations to get them to fund universities to do the kind of research that the CIA needed for intelligence purposes. We saw the Rockefeller Foundation had been funding these programs for the CIA as early as 1950. CIA only came into existence in 1947. Rockefeller. And what is the Rockefeller Foundation doing today? Let's go to the Atlantic Council donor roll. Let's look at the 2024 here. $1 million plus. These are the top. This is NATO's covert civil society action arm. Over $1 million annual contributions. So we don't even know what beyond $1 million it is, but it's over $1 million a year. The State Department, the Department of War, the UK government, and the Rockefeller Foundation. Now, as we've covered, there are 7 number one heads of the CIA currently on the board of directors of the Atlantic Council. Who else is the Rockefeller Foundation sponsoring besides NATO's civil society action arm with 7 CIA directors on their board, annual funding at the Pentagon? Well, turns out, now partner with Mr. Beast. And who is the Rockefeller Foundation run by? Who is the one who is giving over $1 million a year to the Atlantic Council? Who is funding the CIA pass-through vehicle? The CIA and NATO pass-through vehicle. Who's running the Rockefeller Foundation? This is the head of the Rockefeller Foundation, one of the top funders of the Atlantic Council, running the foundation arm of John D. Rockefeller. Well, how does one run the $6 billion influence fund? 30th largest foundation globally by endowment. In 2009, Dr. Raj Shah was appointed the head of USAID by Barack Obama. The number one head. He was the Samantha Power of the Obama administration. Before that, he was at the Gates Foundation. So you go from the Gates Foundation to USAID to running the Rockefeller Foundation. So that is who the number one head of USAID. Here's Dr. Raj Shah's Twitter. The head of USAID for Barack Obama, who completely friggin' just bastardized USAID, which was already a bastard fucking child, bastardized it beyond all belief. 60 million views, 70, 80 million views, 117 million views, 131 million views, 50 million views, 100 million views, 173 million views, 130 million views, 130, everything that he puts up gets 130 views. 80 million views, 130 million views, 192 million views, 213 million views, 150 million views, 154 million views, 121 million views, 194 million views. He averages 150 million views with this brain rot, digital brain cancer. But it's the most popular content on the entire internet. And because of that, Mr. Beast can influence hearts and minds. And because of that, Mr. Beast can be morphed, molded, shaped into a finely tuned instrument of statecraft. Everything can be turned into an instrument of statecraft. Are you a coffee company? Are you a shipping company? Are you a radio talk show host? If it's useful, can be molded into an instrument of statecraft. And now Mr. Beast is at the $1 billion club. Now Trump won the 2024 election. The blob is trying to retool its strategy to stop global populism by leading this big Gen Z push. That's the big Democrat playbook now. That's the big transatlantic European playbook is get Gen Z, get Gen Z.
And as many of you already know, I've been saying for a long time that Meghan Markle fits this same pattern of being a construct of statecraft. I've made many videos showing how both she, Harry, and Archewell are connected to these very same networks, especially the Rockefeller ecosystem and the Arabella network. In revisiting Archewell's resettlement of unvetted Afghan refugees, it has opened my eyes even further to this dark international web of nonprofit organizations, groups that claim to be humanitarian, yet seem designed to reshape society into something that's godless and ultimately destructive. Behind the polished language and moral posturing, it all begins to look like a system driven by greed, power, and control. Yesterday, I posted about an NGO that received hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer funds to resettle unvetted Afghans, many of whom are now considered serious security risks. Its name? The International Rescue Committee, which took in more than $430 million from the U.S. federal government. The IRC is currently led by David Miliband, a former UK Labour Party MP and Foreign Secretary. It also happens to be an official partner of Harry and Meghan's Archewell Fugazi Public Charity. Featured in the post is James Holt, a radical leftist who now serves as Archewell's executive director. Before that, Holt spent years in British politics, working for the Liberal Democrats from 2009 to 2016 in various roles, including head of communications for then Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg. As shared in my previous video, during the Brexit talks, Nick Clegg had numerous private audiences with the late Queen Elizabeth II. Meanwhile, in 2017, James Holt joined the Royal Foundation and, by September 2019, had moved to work directly for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. In 2018, Nick Clegg joined Facebook, now Meta, and became deeply involved in the company's cooperation with the U.S. government's extensive censorship efforts. Internal emails later revealed that Clegg was fully aware these demands frequently violated the First Amendment, and even privately questioned their legality. Yet, he continued to facilitate the government's pressure on the platform. It is a high possibility that James Holt was the one who was behind getting people pulled down on Facebook for criticizing Meghan Markle. James Holt is not only the director at Archewell, but he also serves as a board of director on Travelist, as well as for the nonprofit organization called Inspiring Girls International. Now, when you look at James Holt's role at Archewell and his involvement with this specific charity, Inspiring Girls International, one would think it would align perfectly with Archewell Foundation's public positioning. On the surface, it might look quite bizarre that James Holt is the only male trustee member of this women's charity. But when you look deeper, you will soon realize that the charity was created by none other than Nick Clegg's wife in July of 2016. This organization's mission is to connect girls with the role models they need to see broader career possibilities. What's puzzling to me, though, is the complete absence of any formal partnership or collaboration between Archwell and Inspiring Girls International, given James Holt's position in both of these organizations. I mean, one would think this is precisely the kind of women's empowerment initiative one would expect to be a natural fit for the Mother Teresa Meghan Markle, right? So what is really going on here? Well, we know for years Harry and Meghan have positioned themselves at the intersection of celebrity activism and political influence, being a part of movements that not only shape public opinion, especially for Meghan with these young women and girls, but also generate substantial revenue, often in close alignment with the strategic interests of both the United States and UK governments. Now, tying this back to the Mr. Beast segment at the beginning of this video, it is my belief that Meghan was deliberately created as this asset within the deep state establishment. Her particular focus is supposed to be empowering and shaping the worldview of girls aged roughly 11 to 16, which fits perfectly into the broader information and cultural shaping operations run by the deep state liberal progressives, which are the ones that are pushing for this globalism. Now, when you take a step back and look at the progressive liberal left, and I'm not just talking about the United States, I'm talking about across the West, you see this obsession with empowering adolescent girls, especially those between ages of 11 and 16. You see, a very different picture starts to emerge when you look at it at the high level. And it's not a soft humanitarian glow, it's a cold, strategic calculation. You see, this age group has been sitting at the center of billions of dollars in global development funding. What you're looking at in front of you is actually the U.S. government policy framework that was released under President Barack Obama's administration, designed to address the vulnerabilities of adolescent girls aged between 10 and 19 worldwide by promoting their education, health, economic empowerment, and protection from violence, discrimination, and harmful practices like child, early, and forced marriage, and female genital mutilation. This strategy was developed collaboratively by the Department of State under Secretary John Kerry, who, by the way, was recently given an honorary knighthood by King Charles. Alongside was USAID, the Peace Corps, the Millennial Challenge Corporation, and PEPFAR. It opens with quotes from President Barack Obama on the morale and economic necessity of investing in girls. First Lady Michelle Obama on the biases that hold girls back from education, and Secretary Kerry on how empowering adolescent girls is key to thriving societies. This foundational document lays out 5 main goals. 1, getting girls into safe schools. 2, creating economic incentives for their families. 3, building girls' skills and support networks. 4, shifting harmful community norms. And 5, strengthening laws and policies. All of this builds on Obama-era programs like Let Girls Learn and Dreams, tying U.S. foreign policy directly to the Millennium Development Goals and the broader UN Sustainable Development Agenda, otherwise known as Agenda 2030. Now, before the Biden administration was kicked out of office, this document was updated in October 2024 to incorporate emerging issues like technology-facilitated gender-based violence, mental health, menstrual hygiene, and climate impacts, maintaining the same objectives and interagency implementation, but emphasizing intersectional and locally led approaches with coordination overseen by a White House-led working group. Essentially, what they've done or tried to do was open up more ways to secure funding. You see, just like the whole climate bullshit, adolescent girl empowerment is not a cause. It literally is a front door into a multi-billion-dollar industry where these girls sit at the perfect intersection of every major funding stream in the development world. From education to HIV prevention, maternal health, gender-based violence, now we've included mental health, child marriage prevention, you add in tech, girls in STEM. Each of these bullet points has its own dedicated flow of money that was coming from USAID, the State Department, PEPFAR, the UN, the Gates Foundation, the Clinton Foundation, the Obama Foundation. This was a river that was never going to run dry as long as the Democrats were staying in power. Now you can understand why they want to remove Trump. You see, label a girl 10 through 19 as a high risk, high opportunity, and suddenly you can justify all these various excuses to apply for grants. And just like the DEI and climate bullshit, slapping that label of protecting girls on a program guarantees funding, political support, and obviously positive press. And into this perfectly engineered money laundering ecosystem is grifter Meghan Markle herself being heavily marketed and forced down all our throats, hailed as the global champion for women and girls. It is not a coincidence that this is a role she's been trying to play that just so happens to align flawlessly with these State Department and UN priorities. Meghan Markle's repeated use of that infamous dish soap stupid commercial story from when she was 11 years old ties directly into why girls aged 11 to 16 are so often targeted. It's not just about helping them, but because they're the most malleable and strategically useful demographic. As we've seen with many of Meghan's other anecdotes turning out to be fabricated, there's also a very strong possibility this one is made up as well. Evidence does suggest it might not hold up to scrutiny, which we can talk about at a separate time. But in looking at this specific age range for girls, they're the most malleable psychologically, the easiest to shape ideologically, and the most effective gateway for changing an entire society's future values. Think about this. Meghan Markle is always targeting the youth, but specifically the tween segment. That's her sweet spot. I mean, the most recent evidence to this is that bizarre interview where she talks about her dish soap commercial again and uses these pre-adolescent teens' vulnerability to assert herself as a role model for them. Meghan is always targeting this age group, and it now makes sense, and for good reason. Now, the way that I see it, the reason why Meghan continues to prey on vulnerable 12-year-old girls that are either vulnerable in poverty or come from lower-income single-parent households means potentially shaping the next Marxist teacher, a socialist civil servant, a BLM, Antifa activist, or a communist political leader 15 years from now. Someone already immersed in left ideological frameworks about gender, human rights, globalism, and the warped sense of removal of civil liberties in the name of democracy. That's long-term soft power, something the royal family has managed to refine as an art form. And again, this is exactly the world Meghan Markle was strategically placed into years before she entrapped Harry. The advocacy panels, the UN photo ops, the girls' education speeches that appeared almost out of nowhere. Her image, her messaging, her branding all serve as a polished, media-friendly version of the same ideological export system the US has been running now for decades. This system that Meghan is a part of has a really sinister and dark layer to it, which is the social engineering that no one is openly admitting or talking about. The policies across the Democratic West simultaneously repeatedly emphasize the support for abortions, the support for women in the workforce and having a seat at the proverbial table, delaying marriage, and reshaping gender norms as part of what democracy is supposed to look like. And now what we've seen is that it's being forcibly pushed onto countries considered unstable or high risk. When you view it in line with this Agenda 2030, adolescent girls become a lever for population control. They also become a lever for cultural realignment and ideological submission of this new world order. This is a world they're building where population is heavily controlled in every sense. What's annoying about this is that women and girls are being exploited, and I don't mean that they're being exploited physically. What I mean by exploitation is that women and girls are being used symbolically as the most effective pressure point for remolding entire communities. I mean, that's essentially what it is. Now, when I look at why was Meghan chosen for this role? Well, I think the left thought she was someone that they could put forward who was initially polished, emotional, easily marketed, and had a whole PR engine right behind her controlling her narrative. In the beginning, the persona that they built for her had this moral shield. If Meghan Markle talked about empowerment or says it's empowering, who would dare argue against it? Here you had this biracial, allegedly black woman seen by many vulnerable black girls as something that they could aspire to, right? They saw Meghan as someone who actually really did make it on this world stage. Now you can understand the appeal that this woman had to all these girls around the world. And I do think to some extent, whoever is behind all of what Meghan is doing still honestly believes it, because Meghan is still carrying on with this stupid dish soap commercial when she was 11 years old. And where this all went wrong for Meghan and Harry was the internet destroying this facade. Again, it's why the globalists hate free speech and the lack of control with the information. In 2016, it was working for her as they had that information control. So when you put the pieces together, the picture actually becomes clearer on why Meghan's always targeting the youth, especially within that sweet spot, and why she's always telling that stupid dish soap commercial. Under Democrat leadership, it was decades of taxpayer theft because adolescent girls are the perfect forever problem, just like with this stupid climate change. It's a justified permanent funding pipeline that is designed to shape and predict future political and cultural landscapes, heavily now leaning to this socialist left. All of these people are just so gross and corrupt, but this is what is going on. Now that Trump is in power and Doge exposing the decades of corruption, we've definitely seen a dramatic shift in not only Harry and Meghan's behavior and things that they participate in, but also with others like Bill Gates. I mean, all of a sudden now, climate change is not such a big deal anymore. Yeah, we're also seeing internationally this pressure to shift the power back into the Democrats' hands with the aggressive push to control the online space, as well as the information warfare that has been going on recently in order to disrupt and divide the MAGA base. I mean, we are seeing active involvement with color revolutions going on in these staged protests. This is all being funded by these globalists. Now, the last thing that I'd like to say is that if indeed women and girls were a priority, then there's no excuse for the decades of graping that has been going on in the UK, as well as the female violence that's happening now in European countries against women and girls. I'd like to close out with this story that is absolutely heartbreaking, but it just goes to show that no, these globalists and bureaucrats don't give a shit about women. It's really just a pipeline for them to take more wealth. This is 9-year-old Luna. She's from Sweden. 9-year-old Luna left school on her bicycle to ride 10 minutes home. She never arrived. She was dragged into a forest, stripped, beaten, raped, and strangled with her own shoelaces by 15-year-old Ethiopian migrant Abushi Kamal, who had been investigated for several sexual assaults since age 12, but was never locked up. Luna is now severely brain damaged, wheelchair-bound, and spoon-fed by her family. She hasn't spoken since except to say, Mama. Her attacker is in a psychiatric unit. His family was relocated. None were deported. The numbers tell a story. The reported grapes in Sweden was 421 in 1975. In 2023, that number is 9,300. Now, the most disturbing thing about this is that a lot worse is happening to these little girls, and some don't even make it out alive. This is happening in Germany. This is happening in France. This is happening in the UK at an unprecedented level, all because they are allowing animals into their country unvetted. Where are all the politicians who cry about getting more money to help women and girls? Where are all the celebrities who cry about women empowerment, like stupid Meghan Markle? And where are organizations like Inspiring Girls International, which is a stupid name, by the way, helping these girls not fall prey to the broken system that these assholes have created for them? If they really cared about women and girls, this would not be happening. Anyhow, what do you guys think? Definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!
Such a fraud.